The train slid into Shinjuku Station with its usual metallic sigh, doors opening with that practiced, pacifying chime. Mina Okabe stepped off, her shoes landing silently on the platform. She adjusted the strap of her crossbody bag, waiting for the pulse of commuters to jostle past her, to fold her into its weekday rhythm. But the jostle never came. She blinked. Not empty, not even close, but light. Just light enough to notice. She turned slightly, letting her eyes graze the faces in the crowd without making contact. The morning flood of commuters moved with an odd fluidity. No sharp elbows or tired stumbles. Children holding hands with parents stood quietly. No one argued at the vending machines. No one was recording anything. And more than that, no one was loud. Her hand drifted instinctively to her wrist. The screen on her audio sensor band lit up. 43.6 decibels. Too low. Monday average for Shinjuku Station at this hour was 61.2, based on her own data collection over the last 3 years. Below 50 meant libraries, museums, temples. This wasn't silence. This was missing sound. A departure announcement echoed across the station, crisp and clean, no competing noise to fight. She scanned again. Still no alarms, no fights, no school groups, no music bleeding from cheap earbuds. The man beside her sneezed. Half the platform turned. One woman flinched. Mina didn't move. She noted the reaction. She stored the numbers. But she kept walking. Same pace, same posture. As if she hadn't noticed anything at all. The escalator had more air between shoulders than usual. Her left hip didn't brush anyone's coat. At the top, the convenience store was open, but had no line. The cash register was shut. No beep. Just the girl at the counter, standing behind it like a static image from a paused video. Mina stepped onto the sidewalk. Morning sun rose along glass, steel, and vertical LEDs, casting fractured gold between buildings. She reached up to tighten her ponytail, then double-checked the decibel reading on her wrist again. 44.1. She gave a half laugh through her nose. Her hand dropped. The pedestrian signal changed to green. A flock of salarymen crossed around her, briefcases clipped tightly to their thighs, heads angled just enough to avoid eye contact. No shouting, no slow walkers, no pop idols on loudspeakers. Mina narrowed her eyes slightly, tilting her face upward as if listening for something buried above the buildings. There was no headline here. No headline yet. Just the strange quiet of a city that hadn't realized something was missing. The co-working space was housed in an old bathhouse, a leftover of Tokyo's effort to romanticize its own decay. The marble was cracked, the ceilings high, and every table came with a biometric privacy shade, a filter that blurred screens from side angles. Mina chose a corner booth with line of sight to both exits. The coffee was bad, but the bandwidth was military grade. She opened her laptop. The startup screen flickered past her Retina ID and dropped her into a desktop like a surgeon's tray. Stripped, clean, efficient. 4 apps. One of them was called Hero, short for Hierarchical Outlier Recognition Operator, her personal anomaly aggregator. She'd built it herself, patching together open-source web scrapers, defunct government feeds, and a paid backdoor into a deprecated facial vector engine. Hero wasn't fast. It was quiet. It didn't scream headlines. It whispered. It noticed patterns the news missed, not because they were hidden, but because they didn't look like news. This morning, Hero was whispering. She glanced at the terminal overlay. The active scan grid blinked amber across 6 coordinates: Cairo, Egypt, Jakarta, Indonesia, São Paulo, Brazil, Lagos, Nigeria, Munich, Germany, San Diego, U.S. each flagged not for incident, but for non-incident. No alerts, no trending, no violence, no power grid dip, but real-time metadata output, location-tagged selfies, microblog timestamps, traffic sound signatures, had flatlined. Not gone, but unnaturally consistent. In Jakarta over the last hour, only 4 people had posted a location-verified photo. Average for that window? Nearly 2,000. She leaned closer. These weren't system failures. The APIs were still streaming. The users were still online. They just weren't saying anything. She pulled up a narrow column of facial vector graphs from Lagos. Still blinking, still live. People walking through door cams, security feeds, mall kiosks. Just no comments, no photos, no transaction logs. Ghost living, she muttered, drumming her fingers on the table. She tabbed to Hero's probability model. Greater than global civil rhythm disruption. 87% confidence. Greater than probable cause. Non-violent, multi-region behavioral shift. The cursor blinked. She stared. Her stomach felt oddly cold. Then, Hero added something new. A quiet green line of text appeared at the bottom of the terminal. Tokyo latency confirmed. She looked up. Someone across the room dropped a spoon. The metal clink echoed, sharp as a slap. Everyone paused, and everyone looked. Then, like film continuing after a skipped frame, they returned to their screens. Mina recentered the map overlay, shrinking the global view down to 6 pulsating dots, each representing one of the flagged metro zones. She let Hero run recursive probability sorting on all publicly available datasets in those regions. Regional news, weather events, energy spikes, military movements, protest maps, major religious observances. Nothing aligned. Jakarta had just come out of a major football celebration. Lagos was in its weekday lull. Cairo had clear skies. São Paulo was between election cycles. San Diego was quiet, unless you counted a niche AR graffiti protest that fizzled out last week. Munich's biggest news item was a traffic realignment near the ISAR. No pattern, no shared cause, no central trigger. She cross-tabbed facial vector timestamps across municipal surveillance networks. Movement hadn't stopped. People were still walking, commuting, appearing on camera. But they weren't interacting. The stream of digital output had thinned like someone turned down a dial no one remembered existed. Her terminal hummed. She checked the anomaly log. 0 outages. 0 compression errors. 0 DOS attacks. The cloud was fine. This wasn't a systems error. This was behavioral. Conscious, coordinated. But by whom? Mina leaned back, chewing the inside of her cheek. Her mind walked through the usual doors. Was it a mass protest? Number. Protests want attention. Was it fear? No threat alerts, no recent attacks, no spikes in biometric panic response in any region. Was it suppression? All 6 zones use different comm structures, different protocols, different surveillance layers. If this was state-driven, it would have leaked. Then what? Who withdraws without broadcasting? Why? She pulled open her private side directory, a locked archive of soft theories she'd compiled over the last 3 years. Rumors, threads, abandoned wiki pages, forums banned for algorithmic misinformation. She scrolled until she found the word, accord. Alias OGA, off-grid accord. Status, conspiracy class unverified. Description, a theorized decentralized migration model involving silent withdrawal from state surveillance zones, possibly AI-assisted, possibly religious. Her cursor hovered. The entry was a dead end. 10 paragraphs of half-baked speculation. She'd skimmed it once, dismissed it. There were no citations, no leaks, no manifesto. Just a vague idea. A whisper of something happening quietly in the spaces between visible intent. She hadn't thought of it in over a year. But this silence, this wasn't random. It was precise. She tapped the map again, watched the 6 dots pulse, slower now, dimmer. And then, in the bottom right corner of Hero's interface, a 7th dot blinked into existence. Tokyo. Her own city. It was beginning here too. The ministry's building had no signage anymore. After the 2032 merger between 4 regulatory agencies, its name had been reduced to a rotating string of acronyms, each more forgettable than the last. Mina still called it by its old name, the Ministry of Information, because it reminded her of what it used to pretend to be. She passed through facial scan and temperature gate, blinking into a blue light, then entered the reception chamber. A polite, aging AI behind the counter told her to wait. She didn't bother responding. She was already being watched. Kazuo Inoue met her in the garden. It wasn't a real garden, not technically. A rooftop atrium piped with sunlight-filtered LEDs and temperature-controlled mist. The air smelled faintly of engineered bamboo. He stood waiting beneath a sculpted pine tree, holding a porcelain cup like it weighed nothing. "Still drinking from cups too expensive to steal," Mina said, approaching. Inoue smiled. He hadn't changed. Silver hair combed precisely back, long black coat, shoes polished to mirror glass. He looked like a man born in the wrong century, or maybe the right one, if control was the goal. "Mina," he said warmly, "I thought you were done with ghosts." She sat across from him at the stone table, didn't bother with small talk. "I found something." "You always do." She opened her tablet and laid it between them. The map was already up. The 7 flagged cities, blinking slowly, quietly. She tapped Tokyo. "It started yesterday," she said. Each zone dropped into rhythm-flat behavioral sync, not outages, absence, no shared trigger, not political, not religious, all different infrastructures, but the same silence. And now it's here. Inoue sipped his tea, looked at the map without moving his eyes. "It's noise," he said calmly. "Background drift. Every system develops anomalies. You know this." "This isn't drift," Mina replied. "It's design. Intentional. Precise. Like they're folding away, at scale." He raised an eyebrow, but didn't correct her. "And you've ruled out infrastructural coincidence?" "Yes." "And psychological mass effect?" "Yes." "And coordinated protest?" "Too quiet. No statement. No hashtags. Nothing viral. No call to action. No signature. This isn't messaging. It's removal." Inoue set the cup down. Gently, no sound. "Mina, I'm not trying to insult your instincts. You were always good at identifying patterns, but not everything that matches is meaningful. I'm not chasing meaning. I'm watching volume." She narrowed her eyes. "I think this is connected to the accord theory." There it was. She watched his body and saw it. A pause. Fractional. Before the sip. The smile came too soon, before his eyes moved. He'd heard the name before, and he hadn't expected her to say it. He smiled, warm as ever. "That old story?" That story wasn't on any indexed grid 3 years ago. But now I'm seeing artifacts. Signal latency, pattern silence, identity drift. There's coordination, and someone's maintaining it. Mina, he said softly, like a father explaining mortality to a child. Do you want your career to stay finished or become finished? She said nothing. He leaned in slightly. You remember what happens when the public gets wind of things they're not built to understand. You've seen it firsthand. She did. She had. He stood, brushed the sleeves of his coat with ritualistic precision. You didn't find anything, Mina. Don't start chasing shadows just because the light feels strange. He walked away without waiting for her response. She stared at the porcelain cup. Still warm, still full. He hadn't taken another sip. The walk home was long enough for the streets to forget her. By the time she reached her building, a converted office block wrapped in solar mesh, the last smear of sunlight had vanished behind Tokyo's crystalline skyline. Her apartment, 5th floor, second from the end, looked no different than it had that morning. That was the part that bothered her. She slid her finger across the biometric lock and entered. The room greeted her with stillness. No smart speaker, no motion lighting. Just the gentle hum of the filtration system and the faint amber glow of the city bleeding through blinds. She placed her tablet on the table. Didn't sit. Instead, she crossed to the window, cracked it slightly. A cool breeze slipped in, tinged with the scent of electrified dust. She listened. Below, cars moved, bikes cut through lanes, vending machines flickered. The world looked alive, but it sounded hollow. She returned to her desk, pulled a burner mic from the drawer, not connected to her devices, not logged anywhere. Just copper wire and a dead circuit. She plugged it into her recorder. Then she spoke. If you're watching this, I saw it first. She paused, repeated it again, slower, with the timestamp spoken aloud. She didn't say her name. She didn't mention the accord. If someone ever found the recording, they'd have to already know what it meant. That was the point. She saved the file to a cold drive, disconnected everything. Then, with a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, she reopened her laptop. Hero's interface blinked back to life. The grid was still there, still pulsing. She leaned in. There were now 8 zones. She scrolled through the list. Familiar names: Cairo, Jakarta, São Paulo, Lagos, Munich, San Diego. And at the bottom, newly added, Tokyo, Zone 8. Silence onset confirmed. Local latency, 94.2%. She stared. 94.2%. That meant nearly the entire digital rhythm of the city had gone flat. And she hadn't noticed. Not in the train. Not in the co-working space. Not even walking home. She looked around her apartment, suddenly aware of how quiet it really was. She didn't speak again. Didn't record anything further. She just closed the window and waited for the silence to do what it came to do. She started with the simplest possible case, a schoolteacher. The name was Narumi Takeda, age 41, verified public identity, routinely geotagged in Shinjuku Ward. Dozens of posts per day, grocery check-ins, class updates, fitness logs. Not a private person. She'd even live-streamed her morning commute once a week, like clockwork. Until 3 days ago. Then, nothing. Not a farewell. Not a locked account. Not a deletion trail. Just quiet. Mina opened one of Narumi's last logged entries, a public message board reply under her real name, praising a new brand of classroom-grade holoboards. Time-stamped July 6th, 7:48 a.m. She followed the IP trail back through her access network, using a mirror scrape of local telecom data still floating on a dark mirror node. There it was. Her device pinged the network 6 more times that morning. Mundane activity. Then her node went cold at 9:02. No further authentication, no logout, no forwarding, no jump to other networks. Not disconnected. Just nothing. Mina narrowed her eyes. Ran the same trace again, this time layered with facial vector mapping from local kiosks and transit cams. Final confirmed sighting. Entering the elevator at a teaching facility in Nishi, Shinjuku. Alone. No anomalies. Her expression blank, but not distressed. No signs of surveillance avoidance. Just another Monday. The elevator security cam feed time-stamped the moment she vanished. 9 hours, 0 minutes, 12 seconds. The door closed. It never reopened, not on record. The cam's next timestamp was a different person exiting the same elevator 4 seconds later. Mina zoomed in on the time code, rewound, watched it again. Narumi enters, door closes, jump cut, new person exits, no log disruption, no evidence of tampering, just a subtle skip in continuity, like a frame missing from a film reel. Mina checked deeper. No outbound GPS record, no home router pings, no package scans, no bank activity, no login from any known subnet, no funeral, no missing person report, not even a ping from family, as if Narumi Takeda had never existed after that moment. And the strangest part? The data hadn't been deleted. It hadn't been suppressed. It simply wasn't being asked for. Mina stared at the blank return feed. It was the cleanest absence she'd ever seen. Not a break in the system, but something far more elegant. A complete removal of inquiry. She turned to the spaces that weren't indexed, the ones Hero couldn't scrape clean. The dead forums, the abandoned subnet gardens, old decentralized discourse chains left to rot under layer after layer of algorithmic dust. Not illegal, just unfashionable. Places where the self-anointed paranoids and precursors had once talked to each other like prophets, sharing riddles. She started with a phrase. Off-grid accord. Then tried variations, accorded ghosts. Unobserved exodus, the quiet shift, OGA, no signal pact. Most returned nothing, but in one fragment, a scorched cache from an extinct federated message board called Outer Map, she found something. A post dated January 2037. User, Null Signal 42. Thread title, They Left Without Leaving. It's not a cult. It's a consensus. But the consensus is never declared. It's recognized. Some of us saw it. You'll know if it's for you. They don't recruit. They don't teach. They don't post. If you're asking questions, you're already too noisy. Another user had replied, 0 phase. Accord isn't a group. It's a silence. You either enter it or you echo. That thread had no upvotes, no further replies. It had been archived within 48 hours of posting. Mina cross-checked the usernames. No associated profiles, no location pings, no contact data. She tried to trace Null Signal 42 through their encryption key lineage. Dead end. Not even a burner trail. She searched another subnet. Found a scrap from an art-sharing node in rural South Korea, an oil painting titled, We stopped speaking all at once. The artist had written only one line in the metadata. For Selene, wherever she isn't. No more posts from that artist. Profile deleted. Mina switched nodes again. On a voice codec archive out of Finland, she found a corrupted message thread labeled ACCORD. Most of the audio was static, echo, breath, unvoiced half-speech. But the file header contained a strange comment. In the accord, there is no after, only absence. She leaned back in her chair, rubbed her eyes. Each reference contradicted the next. Was it a protest? A philosophy? A test? A system? She tried to reassemble the pieces into something coherent, but the puzzle kept changing shape. It wasn't noise. It wasn't disinformation. It was something she'd seen only once before in a disinfo campaign. Intentional incoherence. No leaders. No calls. No manifestos. But the same signature in every thread. A choice. To stop being seen. The signal registry wasn't supposed to exist. It wasn't part of any public database or institutional mirror. She found it buried inside an abandoned logistics node, once used by a short-lived disaster relief protocol. A forgotten back-channel server floating between global agencies that no longer existed under the same names. The file was called Behav Shift Register 2035Q3. She skimmed the header. Purpose: identification of high anomaly individuals exhibiting sustained deviation from standard behavioral baselines, potentially in response to unverified ideological movements. Status: archived, inactive, redacted. There were 11 names, only 11. Some were marked integrated, likely absorbed into state programs or deprogramming facilities. 2 were marked deceased. 1 line was corrupted, and 1 remained open. Name: Byron Heller. ID key: 1128-BC. Location at flag: British Columbia Interior. Profession: communications engineer, private contractor. Notes: increased isolation, total digital reduction, high encryption competence, sudden career abandonment, untraceable correspondence to non-attributed subnet. There was no medical tag, no criminal flag, no institutional interventions listed, just that sequence of odd behaviors, followed by silence. Then the final line, in a smaller font, gray on gray, as if not meant to be read. Contact attempt failed, unconfirmed. Mina stared at that phrase. Failed by whom? Unconfirmed in what way? She pulled back from the screen, suddenly aware of the chill on her arms. She reran the name through Hero. Nothing surfaced. No social threads. No academic citations. No metadata ripples. The man had vanished from all indexed rhythm, except for this one file. And one more thing. In the upper corner of the registry file, under internal tags, a short flag. Accord? Handwritten annotation. Just that, with a question mark, as if someone, somewhere, had wondered the same thing she was wondering now. Was this man the only loose thread that hadn't been pulled? The node was half forgotten, a line of code in a dataset from an old academic research project that used to monitor weather and animal migration across the Canadian Rockies. The original URL was dead. The university department that hosted it had been folded into a biocapital analytics firm 3 years ago. Most of the node's files were scrambled, corrupted during a fire or a server migration. But someone had mirrored the directory offline, then buried it inside a public media restoration archive under the tag Signal Debris. not useful. Mina disagreed. She scanned through the directory manually, line by line, packet by packet. After 2 hours, she found the artifact. Not labeled, not time-stamped. Just a 1.4 megabyte audio clip labeled BC42 pitch_unfold.wav. She opened it. The first 10 seconds were empty. Not silence, active noise, wind through pine, rustling leaves, a low hum, possibly from an old sensor pylon. Then, without warning, a voice. "This is not disappearance." There was a pause. Static shifted. "This is refusal." The voice was female, mid-register, unhurried. No inflection markers for emotion, no distortion. It didn't sound rehearsed. It didn't sound broadcast. It sounded observed. As though the voice didn't care if it was heard. As though it had spoken, and that was enough. Mina played it again, and again. On the 4th loop, she leaned closer to the waveform. No background hum behind the voice, no breathing sounds, no vocal sibilance typical of compression. Either the recording was expertly cleaned or it wasn't recorded on Earth-based equipment. She checked the file metadata. No creation date. No author, no chain of custody. Only one embedded string in the codec, SRC LORIEN. She searched the tag. It led nowhere. The only match was an obsolete lunar weather satellite, inactive since 2029. A chill passed over her, slower than fear but colder. This wasn't a manifesto. It wasn't a rallying cry. It wasn't trying to explain itself. It was a sentence spoken only once, as though someone had whispered into a void and left it behind, perfectly preserved, like a footprint where no ground should exist. She didn't post under her name. Even blacklisted, Mina had ways of moving quietly. A burner identity spun from 3 levels of obfuscation, 0 biometric match, no handwriting samples, voice cloning on mute. She used an older mesh, Subline 5, a shadow journal platform from the pre-regulation days, still crawling through sovereign state XNets, barely surviving on decentralization fumes. She posted one line. "Seeking confirmation, Byron Heller, BC Interior, last known node, 1128. No context, no tags, no accord references. Just enough to bait a ping if someone knew the name. She pressed enter. The post blinked into existence, time-stamped, unindexed, then gone. Not flagged, not downvoted, not archived, deleted. She blinked, refreshed. The thread wasn't empty. It never existed. Her terminal began to hum, soft and off-key. Then her connection dropped. No warning, no error message. Just a clean, cold blackout across all tunnels. She reached for her alt router. Dead. She pinged her backup through a satellite proxy. Refused. The VPN spine collapsed inward, like a paper box folding. Every route choked off. She sat frozen in the glow of her bricked system, watching her credentials dissolve in real time. Line by line, her private caches, keychains, mirrors, and soft scrapers were being burned, not exposed, but revoked. By the time the screen finally powered down, she was offline in the most literal sense. No net, no system ID, no access. She waited. 2 hours passed, then 3. No pings, no alerts, no knock at the door, just quiet. And then, her tablet turned on by itself. She hadn't touched it. It had been powered down. No boot screen, no login, just a single line of text on a black background. Do not pursue Heller. He is not yours to find. She stared at it, said nothing, didn't breathe. The text blinked once, then faded. The screen went black again, and stayed that way. The wind moved like something trying not to be heard. Byron Heller crouched low beneath the cedar line, one gloved hand resting on frost-laced moss, the other wrapped around a battered pair of binoculars. He swept the ridge slowly, north, then east, then back again. The same pattern. Always the same pattern. Perimeter check. Routine. 14B. Clearings. Blind spots. Tree line glint. Moisture density. Tracks. Sound bleed. No animals today. No paw prints. No crunch of deer bone on bark. He'd lived in these mountains for 7 years, maybe 8. He no longer kept calendars. Time was counted in melt cycles and signal noise, not months. There were no clocks in the cabin, only watches, and none of them synced to anything. He finished the sweep and stood. Exhaled through his nose. The air tasted of stone and distant ozone. He scanned the sky, mostly blue, some streaking from high-altitude plains to the south. Commercial. Useless. Too far from the grid lines to mean anything. He turned to head back to the cabin, and heard it. A sound so alien to this part of the world it landed like a memory instead of noise. A drone. Not military grade, not hobbyist either. Something heavier than delivery, lighter than recon. It wasn't searching, it was delivering. Byron moved fast down the hill, boots finding familiar stone and earth. He followed the sound through second-growth pine until he reached a small rocky clearing he'd intentionally never cleared. A known dead zone. The drone was already descending. Black shell, silent rotors, no logos, no heat shimmer. It didn't hover or scan or flash. It simply released a small foam-cushioned capsule, then lifted without ceremony and vanished back into sky. He didn't move until the sound was gone. Then he approached, slow, methodical. No signal trap, no obvious beacons. The capsule was sealed, but not locked. It bore no barcode, no print, not even the polite insignia of commercial post. He knelt, unsheathed his knife, and cracked it open. Inside, a satellite phone. Burned casing, older model, cleaned ports, dead battery. Beside it, a slip of paper folded with geometrical precision. He unfolded it. On it, a cipher sequence. Alphanumeric grid with pattern breaks every 17 characters. It was almost identical to one he'd received years ago, during what he now called the Selene attempt. The structure was the same, the cadence, the grammar of absence. But the code was different, shorter, sharper, updated. He stared at it for a long time, then stood without a word and carried everything back to the cabin. Byron powered the sat phone using a solar bypass rig he'd built for emergencies, meant for brief pulses only, not long connections. He hooked it through a copper-pinned filter to screen for interference. Nothing abnormal. The screen blinked once. No boot screen. No welcome message. Just a single prompt. Retrieve Y or N. He pressed Y. The message downloaded. 5 seconds of static. Then a stream of tones. Not voice, not text. Morse, but not perfect. Spaced pauses. Not mechanical. Someone had input the message by hand. He transcribed it in real time, the old-fashioned way. Pen, paper, no conversion software. When he reached the third line, he paused. One phrase, "You remained. We are still removing." He read it twice, then a third time. The rest of the message was garbled, or made to appear so. Redundant strings of null markers, mathematical palindromes, and what looked like deliberate entropy. But that line stood clear. It was meant for him. And that meant they were alive. Or someone wanted him to believe they were. That night, he couldn't sleep. Sleep came rarely now. He lay fully clothed atop a wool bedroll, one hand on the latch of the gun case beside the stove. His eyes were open, listening, calculating. By midnight, he gave up. He stepped outside into the cold. No flashlight, no sound. The trees were thick, branches black against a cloudless sky. He walked the perimeter again. Not a full sweep, just enough to verify that no new cracks had formed in the routine. No tampering. No footfall where there shouldn't be any. Then he saw it. At the far edge of the moss trail, just past the creek bed. Prints. Not his. Too narrow. Too shallow. Boot tread. Non-military. Civilian grade. Days old, maybe less. No drag. Whoever it was moved with confidence, then left just as clean. But the path they'd taken, it wasn't random. It was his approach vector 2C, one of the only trails where he didn't place markers. Whoever it was knew how to enter without being seen. They hadn't come to breach the cabin. They'd come to look. He crouched next to the print and ran a gloved finger along the heel groove. It hadn't rained. The soil was undisturbed elsewhere. No debris moved. Whoever it was left no signal. That was the part that scared him. Back in the cabin, he opened his old journal logs. The Selene logs, he called them. He hadn't touched them in years. He scanned until he found the cipher from the original message, the one he'd ignored, the one he'd nearly burned. He laid the new code beside it. They matched exactly until the final line. The original ended in null. This one did not. The final line, transcribed and handwritten in the same pattern, now read, "Okabe has seen too much." Byron stared at the name. No first name, just that. But there weren't many Okabes still in the journalism sphere, and only one he remembered. He hadn't thought of her in, 5 years? He thought she'd been discredited, burned out of the system, disappeared in the old way. Career collapse, no ceremony. But if her name was in the cipher, and if the Accord, or whoever had inherited the pattern, was still removing people, then she had either gotten too close. Or worse, she was being used to draw him out. He sat still for a long time, staring at the logs. Then he reached for the sat phone and crushed it. No hesitation, no second thought, just one sharp movement, and it cracked in half like a cheap toy. The message had been received. There would be no reply. Mina erased herself the same way she wrote her stories, carefully, in the margins, without punctuation. The digital death simulation took less than an hour. She'd practiced it twice, but never executed it until now. Step 1. Scrape her name from real-world services, banking, medical, food tracking, using soft erasure bots built for privacy advocates and dissidents. Step 2. Construct a ghost trail, incoherent forum posts, sudden content shifts, poor grammar, erratic timestamps. Suggestive of cognitive decline, but vague enough to seem real. Step 3. upload a final note to a public-facing code repository. It was a single line of terminal syntax, kill SIGINT self. Someone would find it. Assume the worst. Comment threads would eat themselves trying to guess whether it was literal or performative, and then they'd move on. That was the point. By morning, Mina Okabe would no longer be searchable. By afternoon, she was airborne. Customs took longer than it should have. The terminal in Vancouver was cold, sharp-edged, too clean. She didn't speak unless prompted. Her passport scanned. Her name, not her real name, blinked across the border official's retinal overlay. He asked her where she was staying. Kamloops, she said. Nature riding retreat. No net. He gave a tight-lipped nod, a long pause. His eyes didn't match the questions in his voice. She knew the scan had flagged something. Maybe just an anomaly. Maybe a soft watch list. The kind of thing that didn't trigger alarms. Just eyes. Then he cleared her. She moved fast, not running, not hiding, just efficient. Civilian quiet. By nightfall, she was in a rented flat off a side street in a nameless neighborhood. No service, no mirrors. She removed the contact lens scanner from her left eye and flushed it down the toilet. That night, she didn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, watching a pattern of shadows crawl across the plaster as snow built up outside the window. Cold moved differently in this country. Less personal. Like it was performing winter for itself. In the morning, she boarded a supply shuttle headed northeast. Destination, Columbia Icefield Corridor. The shuttle driver was ex-military, probably reserve. Older than he looked, with the quiet, autopiloted speech of someone who'd spent too many years only talking to people who couldn't talk back. He didn't ask why she was headed into the deep corridor. She didn't offer. The further they went, the thinner the world felt. Small towns faded. Road signs grew sparse. The sky turned metallic, a soft, unnatural gray that made everything beneath it feel provisional. Trees stretched wider apart. The air was clean in a way that felt staged. No wireless signal. No radio. At checkpoint 6, the driver looked at her sideways and said, "You know if you don't come back through, nobody checks?" She nodded once. He nodded back. They drove another hour in silence before he let her off at a turnoff marked only by a bent sign and a makeshift flag. "You got maps?" "I have what I need." "Stay warm." Then he left. She walked the first hour on foot, snowbike strapped with basic supplies, a printed topographic map in her inner pocket, and an outdated GPS rig that didn't ping satellites, just told her where she'd already been. By kilometer 8, she felt it. The silence. It wasn't environmental, it was behavioral. Not a single plane overhead, no contrails, no bird sounds, no drone buzz, no distant human shape in any direction, just white, and air, and trees, and something else. Not presence, but pressure. Like a signal she couldn't hear had moved just outside the range of perception. She parked the bike under netting near a break in the tree line. From here it would be foot only. The maps marked an old miner's cabin somewhere near the ridge, about 2 clicks in. No grid line, no power, possibly no roof. That wasn't the one she was looking for. She adjusted her pack, checked the wind, walked forward. She saw the glint just before sundown. Metal, low and wide, set deep between angled slopes, nearly invisible without the right vantage. It wasn't just hidden, it was blended. Camouflage netting, tree growth coaxed into unnatural symmetry, and no path, no trail markers, just raw earth. The cabin was real. She stepped into view deliberately, hands raised, unarmed. She didn't speak, didn't move further. Waited. At first there was nothing, no sound, no shift. Then, to her left, 20 meters off, a click, a scope's breath. She turned slightly. He was there, leaning against a pine trunk, rifle loosely shouldered, not aimed at her, not yet. His coat was heavy, lined with earth tones, beard thicker than his last known image, eyes gray, staring. "You're late," he said. She opened her mouth. "I know who you are," he said again, before she could speak. "What I don't know is whether they sent you." His voice was calm, controlled, but it carried no welcome, only calculus. She didn't move, didn't nod, didn't blink, just stood in the snow, a shape at the edge of another man's exile. The rifle stayed in Byron's hands until they were inside. The cabin door closed behind her with a whisper, not a thud. Wood against weather seal. No latch sound. Every hinge had been padded. No creak. The air smelled of old cedar, leather, stove smoke, and cold iron. Mina stepped slowly into the entry space. He gestured with the barrel. "Drop the coat. Bag, too." She did. Deliberate, no hesitation. Just enough delay to show him she wasn't scared, only careful. She placed both items on the table near the stove. "Boots," he said. She crouched, unzipped them one at a time, and stepped out onto the raw plank floor. Byron slung the rifle over one shoulder, pulled a folding camp chair from the wall, and placed it near the door. He sat, watched. She stood still. Let him look. He moved first. One step at a time, he scanned her coat with a handheld EM wand. Analog, battery-fed, non-networked. Nothing tripped until he got to the inner lining. There, a tick. Faint. Hidden under insulation. He sliced it open with a blade. Inside, a coin-sized data lens, pressed flat against the thermal mesh. He held it up to the light. "Didn't know this was in here?" he asked. "No." "You didn't sweep yourself?" "I swept the bag." "Lazy." She didn't argue. He stepped into the kitchen alcove, dropped the lens into a tin cup, and poured boiling water over it. The lens bubbled, hissed, and cracked. He returned, leaned against the counter, arms crossed. The rifle stayed within reach. "No one follows someone like you without permission," he said. "If they're letting you move, it's because they want to see what you find." "I know. So what did you think you'd find here?" Mina's eyes didn't move from his. "You." He let the silence stretch, then nodded. "Sit." She did. The heat from the stove reached only halfway across the room. The space was spare but not crude. Hand-built furniture, shelves with canned goods labeled by hand, a generator battery the size of a microwave, analog weather barometers, 0 screens. She scanned the walls. No photos, no calendar. A stack of books with the spines scratched clean. He reached to the far table and picked up a folded paper. Yellowed, creased, familiar. "I'm guessing you've seen this." He passed it to her. She unfolded it, the cipher. Mina inhaled slowly. "I saw a partial match. Last week, buried in a monitoring node out of BC 42. Byron raised one brow. "For a sensor." "Yes, and I pulled an audio artifact from the same dataset." He waited. She spoke the words. This is not disappearance. This is refusal. His mouth tightened. You've heard it, she said. I've heard versions of it, he replied. Voices. Always women. Never angry. Never fast. He stepped back toward the stove, stirred a pot of something that wasn't boiling. I used to think it was a single person, he said. Maybe military. Maybe rogue tech. Then I noticed the tones changed. Pitch, cadence, accent drift. Mina leaned forward slightly. But always the same message. He nodded. I call it the Selene layer. Whatever's behind the accord. That voice isn't a person. It's a threshold. You hear it, you cross. And you didn't cross. Byron didn't answer immediately. He removed the pot, set it down, then turned to face her fully. I almost did. Then I heard something else. What? A name. He didn't say it, but Mina saw it in his expression. The way he looked through her, not at her. They warned you about me. He nodded once. I wasn't warned, she said quietly. I was flagged. Byron moved toward a narrow desk built into the wall. From a drawer, he pulled a notepad, not digital, and a stub of a pencil. He flipped it open, wrote a line, then turned it to her. Okabe has seen too much. I thought you were dead, he said. I am, she replied. Digitally. Not enough, apparently. He folded the notepad, returned it to the drawer, turned to the window. Who else have you told? No one. I can't connect to anything. Good. She watched the shape of him, broad, steady, wound tight like a coil waiting for reason to snap. Not unkind, but fully unwilling to trust anything spoken first. We're both loose threads, she said. That's why they're watching us. They don't watch us, he murmured. They echo us. The sound came without warning. A faint clink from far outside. Subtle, non-metallic. A wind chime made from mesh and fishing line. Byron froze, moved to the shelf, took the rifle, killed the stove light with a switch behind the pipe. Mina stood, silent. He motioned her down with a sharp flick of the wrist. They crouched. Nothing. Then again, faint. A second chime, a different direction. They're not scanning, Byron whispered. They're mapping. Who? But she already knew. It wasn't the state, not corporate retrieval, not bounty. Those teams would have jammed the air, flooded the cabin with warnings. This was something quieter, older, more deliberate. They waited in the dark, the temperature dropping. Byron's finger hovered just above the trigger. The third chime didn't come, and that was worse. The fire was dead. The lights were off. The stove cold. Mina sat cross-legged on the floor, flashlight clamped between her teeth, paper spread out across the floor like a field of broken syntax. The cipher fragment lay in the center, scrawled, rewritten, restructured, torn, and taped back together. Byron crouched nearby, checking the window slits one by one. He'd tied passive traps outside, twine with chimes, pressure tension on the mesh, even a pair of empty cans wedged against the base of the woodpile. He hadn't reset them yet. Something about the silence outside felt unfinished. Inside, Mina was stuck. One of the cipher lines refused to validate. Not a bug. Not a character error. It failed checksum no matter how she parsed it. Letters, then numbers, then more numbers, then stops. She'd assumed it was a message. Now she wasn't so sure. She flattened another sheet of paper, began rewriting the segment, not as a sentence, but as a data structure. "What's the logic?" Byron asked from across the room. She didn't answer. Her eyes narrowed. She drew a box around the cluster, counted its intervals. The pattern repeated every 16 characters, but only across specific ASCII values. Not text, not encryption, fingerprinting. She sat up straighter. "It's a voiceprint," she said quietly. Byron turned. "Excuse me?" "Not speech, not text. It's a biometric pattern, just formatted as characters. It's an identity string, not a sentence." Byron crossed the room, knelt beside her. "Like a signature?" "More than that. It's a vocal fingerprint, pitch ranges, phoneme gaps, breath spacing. It's not what was said. It's who said it." She ran a finger down the column of values. "If I had to guess, this string was never meant to be read. It was meant to be heard." Byron moved to the desk. He opened a wooden case and pulled out a clunky piece of gear, a codec box, heavy, scratched, with a ribbon cable wrapped around it like a leash. Analog interface, manual input, no net ports. "You still have that?" He shrugged. "Had a lot of time to hold grudges against convenience." They booted it up. Mina fed in the voiceprint data manually, line by line. The machine buzzed faintly, keys clicking as she adjusted pitch weight, mod filters, and spacing metrics. The screen blinked green. One match. A file began to play. Static, then silence, then a voice. "We are not lost." Pause. Not uncertainty, not emotion, just space. "We are unobserved." Another breath. "We are free." Then nothing. No signature, no timestamp, no tag. Byron didn't speak. Mina hit replay. The voice was female, mid-register, unaccented, calm. She recognized the cadence instantly. "That's her," she whispered. "Selene," Byron said. "No, not Selene. Not yet. Just the voice." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small data stick, plugged it into the codec, navigated to her BC-42 recording. She played it. "This is not disappearance. This is refusal." They let the two files play side by side. The breath pauses were identical. The tone, the latency, even the non-human stillness between words. "This isn't a recording," Mina said. "It's not like someone just spoke into a mic. It's too precise, too cultivated." "Constructed?" Byron asked. She nodded. "But not by a machine. By intention." Byron stepped away, paced near the window. His shadow danced across the wall like a man watching the past pull its own shape around him. "You think it's one person?" "No. I think it's a protocol." He turned. "Like a message?" "No," she said. "Like a test. A way to mark access. Not for listeners, for respondents." They went quiet. Outside, the wind touched the cabin's walls like breath held too long. Mina sat down again, running a hand across her face. Exhaustion was crawling up her spine like cold water, but adrenaline kept it at the edge. Byron leaned against the wall. "The first time I heard her," he said, "I thought it was a warning. Then I thought it was a challenge. And now, I think it's a door." The last line of the cipher still sat untouched. It looked like coordinates, longitude, latitude, elevation. But something was off. The numbers were too tight, The decimals placed wrong. Mina double-checked, then stopped. It wasn't location data. It was frequency. 3 values, perfectly balanced. 42.711 Hz, 19.008 kilohertz, 0.112 milliseconds latency. She stared. "It's a map," she said softly. "To where?" "Not a place," she said. "A sound condition." She turned to him. "If we recreate this frequency, with the voiceprint as the key, we don't hear something. We trigger something. A response, a location maybe, or a system or a transmission." Byron said nothing, because he already knew. He walked to the shelf, removed a wrapped cloth. Inside, an audio transceiver rig, analog, tuned for exact waveform replication. "I've been waiting," he said, "to hear it again, with someone else who could." Mina met his eyes. For the first time, neither of them blinked. The snow had buried the signal dishes outside the cabin, which suited her. Mina worked from the one place that didn't care how cold it got. Offline. She sat at the workbench in the corner of Byron's cabin, scarf wrapped around her neck like a tourniquet. One kerosene lamp flickered low beside her. The laptop was stripped to base code. No bootloader, no OS shell, just raw command line and a paperclip interface. She coded herself the year she was fired. The voiceprint sat in a quarantined folder named "Do Not Name Her." She didn't touch the raw file. Instead, she split it. Created 4 spectrograph images from the sound wave, then glitched them manually, inserting the signature into non-critical metadata fields inside a custom-built AI art set. She titled the series Echo Folds, colorful, abstract, visually meaningless, each piece posted with a nonsense tag to a federated archive of neural-generated image swaps. Popular with aesthetics nerds, mostly ignored by intelligence. Mostly. She uploaded them in silence. No author tag. No traceable header. Just 4 images. Then she waited. The first signal came in 97 minutes later. It wasn't a comment, not a repost, not even a message in the archive itself. It was a seed transaction. An anonymous crypto push, time-stamped, routed through 3 frozen wallets, all dormant until today. Amount $200,000 US, offered in exchange for the deletion hash of the post. That was the message. Not, "We'll pay you." Not, "Tell us more." Just a proof of funds and a single key exchange offer. She didn't respond. The second message was quieter. It arrived as a ghost packet buried in her local cache, one she hadn't accessed. A decoy folder she hadn't opened in months suddenly flashed blue for a millisecond. Inside, a plain text file. "You are mimicking something you don't understand. Remove it before it removes you." No name, no IP, not even a file extension. Byron read it over her shoulder. He didn't speak for a full minute. Then, "That's not a person." She looked at him. "That's not a threat," he clarified. "That's a purge warning, like a system, identifying rot." "You think it's the Accord?" He shook his head once. "I think it's the thing they're trying not to become." The third response came in sideways. Not a message, a tag. One of the 4 images in the AI archive changed. Her own upload, Echo Fold 3, now contained a new comment, left in the metadata block where no one was supposed to be able to write. "I see what you're using. You don't know what it is. I'll show you what they buried. Then, coordinates. Somewhere on Vancouver Island. And a name, Leah Reyes. Byron cursed softly under his breath when he saw it. Mina looked up. You know her? Not personally, he said. She's a signal ghost. Operated drones for 3 black contracts between 31 and 34. Blew the whistle once, only internally, then vanished before they could burn her. So she's real. She's real. But the fact that she's still real means she's either protected by someone bigger than the Accord, or she's already theirs. Mina packed in silence. Byron stood at the window, arms crossed, jaw clenched. She could be a trap, he said. A honeypot or worse. She sent a signal. She didn't come here. Yet, Mina zipped the bag. She knows something. I have to find out what. Byron pulled something from the shelf, a black drive the size of a matchbox. No markings, no ports. Compression pulse transmitter, he said. Plug it into anything dumb enough to boot. It'll call me. Once. She took it. Don't use it unless you're already burned, he added. I know. He didn't follow her to the door. Didn't ask for her to stay. Didn't say goodbye. She left just before sunrise. Snow layered her footprints as fast as she made them. Byron stayed inside, eyes on the trees, listening. Not for her, for what might follow. Leah Reyes didn't introduce herself. She just swung open the passenger door of the old electric crawler, sunglasses pushed up into her frizzed-out hair, grease on her knuckles, a half-burned cigarette bouncing in her mouth. Get in, she said. Clock's already bleeding. The crawler had no dashboard screen, no telemetry readout, just analog dials welded into a repurposed military shell. As soon as Mina shut the door, Leah hit the throttle, and they peeled away from the drone yard without a word. They rode in silence for 10 minutes. Then Leah spoke, eyes fixed on the road ahead. So, you're the one who painted the Selene wave into public art metadata like it was some shitty vaporwave installation? Mina didn't reply. Leah snorted. Don't look so smug. You almost got scraped. By whom? Not who, Leah said. What? And if you're lucky, they still think you're too dumb to be worth the cleanup. Mina turned. Then why respond at all? Leah finally looked at her. Because I'm dumber. They left the main road and drove for nearly an hour through increasingly unmarked switchbacks. No signage, no traffic. Just tight turns and moss-wrapped forest closing in around them. Leah navigated like someone who had built the road herself and resented every tree that had grown back since. They reached the fence at dusk. Except it wasn't a fence. Just a shallow trench in the earth, interrupted every 20 feet by black plastic markers, standard government hazard warnings. No gate, no sensors, just presence. Mina stepped out first. The air was cold, still, not silent, but still. Leah walked 10 meters along the trench and crouched. There. She brushed snow and pine needles aside, revealing a plastic node the size of a credit card, pressed flat into the soil. Passive tripwire, non-broadcast. Local memory buffer only. She cut the wire, lifted it gently from the dirt, and turned to Mina. Still warm. Inside the tree line, the terrain shifted fast. No visible buildings, no trails. Just a sensation. Something human had happened here and then been erased. flattened earth where weight had once been, shallow indentations forming near-perfect grid patterns, post holes, not industrial, modular. They found shredded camo mesh interwoven with bark, dyed to match the region's fungal lichen, high-end, reactive to moisture, tuned to frequency-deaf drones. Whoever lived here, Leah muttered, was not planning to be found. But they also hadn't left in a hurry. There was no burn, no scorch, no collapse, just absence, as if the forest had grown back into their footprints. Then, at the clearing's edge, they found the structure. Low, squat, wood exterior, but not crude. A hybrid, part cabin, part lab. Byron would have called it too clean. Leah called it what it was, a nest. The outer door was sealed, no lock, no keypad, just a smooth panel embedded into the wood. Black, matte, no seams. Mina touched it. It didn't respond. Leah tried scanning it with a spectrum pen. No ping, no power signature. "It's dead," she said. Mina shook her head. "It's sleeping." She stepped forward, closed her eyes, and spoke, "We are not lost. We are unobserved. We are free." Click. The panel pulsed once. Then the door sighed open. Leah just stared. "No way," she said. Inside, the air was cool and bone dry. No mildew, no dust. Just space. Empty benches, clean floors, cables tied and tucked. Nothing left behind but the shape of an operation. At the center of the room, a single object. A small, matte black cube, hovering 2 centimeters off a ceramic base, humming faintly. It wasn't plugged into anything. Mina stepped toward it. "Wait," Leah said. Too late. Mina reached out and touched the cube. The projector activated. Not a screen. A hologram. A woman, or something shaped like one, stood in the center of the room. Pale skin, dark hair. Ageless, wearing nothing identifiable. Her voice came from all around them, not loud, not recorded, spoken. "This is not an escape," the figure said. She paused. "This is an erasure." Longer pause. "You were never built to be watched." The figure flickered, paused again, then vanished. The room fell silent. Leah exhaled, slow. "That was her." Mina nodded. "No, that was for us." The first drone had been noisy, civilian grade, probably retrofitted. This one made no sound. Byron didn't hear it. He felt it, a low hum in the bone behind his right ear as he crossed the ridge above his cabin's eastern perimeter. He froze, turned slowly. There it was, 20 meters off the ground, motionless. Black shell. No rotors visible, no lights, no identifying marks. It didn't descend. It waited. Byron stepped forward, cautiously, reaching for the old infrared sensor clipped to his belt. It registered nothing. The drone adjusted altitude, 5 meters down. Still no sound. Then, without warning, it ejected a capsule. Small, smooth, matte gray. It didn't fall. It floated gently, guided by micro-thrusters until it touched the forest floor. The drone vanished. No acceleration, no departure vector. It simply was gone. Byron approached the capsule. No lock, no seam. Just a smooth shell and a hand-printed label. He stared. The writing was his own. Block capitals, unmistakable. A fragment of his own journal handwriting. 2. Byron Heller. You remained. Inside the capsule was a single strip of fiber tape. He unraveled it slowly. Another voiceprint cipher. Same format, different content. Not Selene's cadence, not general phrases. These were his own words. Lines he had written in his private logs. Phrases he hadn't spoken aloud in years. Echoes of himself, strung together like someone had been listening all along. He scanned to the bottom. The final sequence. 3 numbers, not coordinates, not timestamps. He recognized the pattern. Audio frequencies, triangulation tones. They weren't telling him where to go. They were telling him how to listen for it. He hiked for hours, past his mapped zones. No net, no trail. Just the old analog triangulation meter strapped to his shoulder, pinging at each harmonic increment. Every few kilometers, the resonance grew more specific, tighter. The sound around him thinned. Bird calls vanished. No rustle, no wind, just absence. Finally, near dusk, he reached a clearing, perfectly circular, maybe 30 meters across. Nothing grew in the center, and at the heart of the circle, a disk, flat, metal, cold against the moss. No markings, no handles, seamless. He stood over it, listening. He spoke the Selene phrase aloud. We are not lost. We are unobserved. We are free. Nothing happened. Silence. He waited, then tried again, quieter. Still nothing. He closed his eyes and said, "My name is Byron Heller." Click. The disc rotated once, soundlessly, and split open. Beneath it, a short shaft of stairs, metal descending into cool, shadowed earth. Byron stepped down. The space below was clean, dry, artificial, not industrial, not concrete, smoothed, no furniture, no controls. Just a single speaker embedded in the wall. And a crate. The speaker came alive as soon as he stepped forward. It wasn't triggered by a button. It wasn't waiting for a password. It was aware of him. The voice, Selene's voice, spoke again. You remained. Pause. That was enough. Nothing else. No music, no prompt. Just those 2 lines. The speaker clicked off. Byron approached the crate. No lock, no tools required. He opened it. Inside were 3 things. A sealed thermos, labeled with nothing. A blank book, cloth-bound, no cover text. A folded garment, hand-woven, seamless, without tags or buttons. Gray, soft, heavy. He held it up. It was his size exactly. He didn't ask how they knew. He didn't ask how long they'd been preparing it. Because this wasn't a gift. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't even a message. It was recognition. The disc sealed shut behind him as he stepped out of the clearing. Nothing followed. No sound returned. And the forest resumed its stillness. The cabin looked the same. From the ridgeline, with the sun just folding behind the trees, everything was in place. The roofline, the dark windows, the slope of the chimney against the snow-heavy sky. But Mina knew. She stood in the trees 10 minutes longer than necessary, unmoving, letting the silence confirm what instinct had already whispered. He's not here. She crossed the perimeter carefully, noting what wasn't there. The tin chimes. Gone. The wire mesh over the footpath. Gone. Even the scatter of snow around the foundation. Undisturbed. untouched. She approached the door. It was shut but not locked. She opened it and stepped into absence. The cabin was clean. Not orderly. Clean. Too clean. No fire in the stove. No dishes in the wash bin. No boots by the door. The workbench was clear, the gear wall bare. The folding rifle was gone. The coded maps, the triangulation meter, the duct-taped tools. All of it. Only the dust remained, but even that seemed muted, undisturbed. She crossed to the desk, already knowing what she wouldn't find. The Cipher fragment, gone. The old logs, gone. She opened the drawer where he'd kept the paper pad, empty. She crouched and ran her fingers along the floor beneath the desk, felt a shallow drag mark in the wood grain. Something had been moved, heavy, not in a rush, not taken, removed. The bookshelf against the back wall used to be crammed, now empty. Except for one thing, a blank book. She picked it up. No cover, no binding text, no marks inside. Just soft pages, uncreased, untouched. She flipped through it slowly, half expecting something to appear between the lines. A ghost of graphite, a code, a final thought. But there was nothing. Until the last page. There, pressed flat, was a single object. A thermos cap, the kind he used to drink from every morning, exactly twice. She didn't open it. She understood. This wasn't something to be searched. It was a signature. She opened the last crate in the corner. Inside, nestled between a folded tarp and a box of batteries, was something that shouldn't have been working. An old analog tape recorder. She picked it up. It clicked on by itself, and Byron's voice played. Flat, calm, final. You found me once. Don't try again. A pause. This was my threshold. Then, static. No timestamp, no loop. The tape wound to silence. She turned it off, stared at the recorder. Not because it had answered anything, but because it hadn't. Outside, the snow had started again, light, sharp, directionless. She stood in front of the cabin for a long time, watching the wind forget where to blow. No footprints, no drone noise, no digital trace. Just her, and what wasn't here anymore. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She didn't search the tree line for signs of retreat. She already knew this place wasn't watched anymore, because it didn't need to be. Whatever purpose it had served, Byron's paranoia, his exile, his refusal, it was complete. Not erased, not hidden, concluded. She whispered his name once, but there was no echo. The blinking light was the first thing she saw when she woke. Mina sat up fast, yanked the emergency foil blanket off her shoulders, and stared at the drive's edge. A red flicker. Repeating. Quiet. Persistent. She hadn't left it connected. She hadn't even powered it. No solar, no thermal, no active storage, and yet, the file was there. Single folder, uppercase, threshold, OKB1. She didn't touch it, not at first. She unplugged everything, hard reset her terminal, ran a physical checksum across the entire system. No intrusion signature, no injected code, just one file. A dot wave. Size 2.6 megabytes. Timestamp none. Source none. She stared at the screen for a long time, then double-clicked. Her own voice filled the tent. Flat, even, clean. I am not what you remember. A pause. I am what remains when memory is refused. Silence. Then, the faint breath at the end, hers unmistakably. The sound she always made when she was done talking and didn't want to explain herself. She sat perfectly still. She hadn't recorded this. No one had mimicked her. No AI could get the microtones right. The shift in throat tension from fatigue, the subtle rasp from windburn, the tiny drag in the second syllable of memory. She didn't just recognize it. She remembered being it, but not here, not now, not yet. She copied the audio into a raw analyzer, stripping it down by layers. The waveform looked normal at first. Then she saw it. Nested echoes, fractal reflections within the file structure itself. The waveform folded on itself. Small repeated pulse intervals too precise for reverb. She zoomed in. Buried in the center of each waveform, sub-harmonic drift. Temporal variance. Not lag, not modulation. Future bias. It hadn't been recorded. It had been calculated. She was hearing her voice as she would speak 6 days from now. The exact vocal drift she'd have from cold, from dehydration, from the tension of decision fatigue. Not a prediction. A projection. The Accord hadn't sampled her. It had rendered her. Attached to the audio was an image file. At first, it was unreadable, pure noise, a chaos of swirling black and red pixels. Then it began to move. A fractal, Mandelbrot-based, but irregular, a living pattern that resolved as it breathed. Each layer sharpened in rhythmic pulses, as if syncing with her breath. She watched it unfold for 4 minutes, and then a map. Topographical, mountainous, northern, remote. One location pulsed red. She accessed the file metadata. There was a single data field. Arrival, plus 6 days, 03/17/29 UTC. No further information. No sender, no footer, just her voice, saying what she hadn't yet said. Just a map, leading to a place she hadn't chosen. Yet. Mina sat in silence. She felt the cold around her, but it didn't register. This wasn't a message. This wasn't surveillance. It was alignment. The Accord didn't need to persuade. It didn't threaten. It waited for your reflection to finally match the shape it had already seen. This was not an invitation. It was a checkpoint. A whisper that said, "We already knew you'd get here." She didn't speak, didn't rationalize, didn't check for second options. She powered down the drive, rolled her map open beside it, marked the path north, and started walking. The climb took 2 days. The path north was steep, uncharted, and increasingly silent. No aircraft, no GPS, no signals pinged. Even the wildlife thinned by the final ridge, as if something in the trees had asked them to leave. Mina crested the summit under cloud cover, the air thin, the silence thinner. Then she saw it. Built into the mountainside, half disguised in snow and lichen. A structure, not a cabin, not a compound, just a shape. Matte black, low profile, unmapped, unwired. And standing at the entrance, a woman. She wore no uniform, no insignia, no gear. She did not wave. She did not speak. She simply waited. Mina approached slowly, each footstep deliberate in the snow. She stopped 10 feet away. The woman inclined her head slightly. Okabe. Not a question. Mina nodded. You came, the woman said. I followed a voice. That voice is yours now. Silence. Then Mina asked, Are you Selene? The woman didn't blink. We all were. Briefly, she stepped aside. The door opened. Inside, the warmth was human. Wood smoke. Cloth. Heat without wires. No machinery hummed. No walls buzzed. There were people. 6, maybe 7. Not gathered, not hidden. Just there. Doing nothing. Saying nothing. Their presence wasn't a secret. It just didn't ask to be known. Mina stepped forward. Looked to the woman beside her. Was this the plan? The woman shook her head. Plans require permission. Pause. We don't. At the threshold, Mina paused. She reached into her coat, removed the tape recorder, set it gently in the snow. No message. No words. She looked one last time at the world she had traced and questioned and outrun, then stepped forward, past the doorway, into silence, into unobservation, and the door closed behind her.